So, just nice. I understand that there are some duties. Membership in the alliance. Even before, it has been a matter, Georgia is a matter of mutual interest and respect. The Polish commitment, Madam Małgorzata Gosiewska, who even received the Georgian Medal of Honor of Georgia. Here in Warsaw, Council of Georgia, Minister David Rakwiashvili. Following,
did you need a visa on the border?
People and that will one of the more
and maybe a follow-up question to the same about the threat.
consistent on this after Europe.
Thank you. So,
access NATO in times of huge uncertainties, also in the Balkans, in order to prevent Montenegro to joining NATO.
Etc. We have these challenges, of course. These challenges are very much connected to our NATO integration aspirations.
NATO membership.
Thank you. First of all, dear Mr. Pisarski, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to speak here in your distinguished think tank, and I'm very much thankful to you for inviting me. And I'm honored to be speaking at the Pulasky Foundation today, which is named after the Polish hero, the ideals of whom are quite close to the heart of the Georgian people, which is really freedom-loving. And like General Pulaski, we understand that freedom is really indivisible, hard-earned, and always necessary to fight for. That is something that the Georgian people knows very well. I'm an academic with my second profession, as you have mentioned, and I highly value the role that research and the expert community plays in policy formulation, and I really welcome and support broadening of the role of epistemic communities in policy making throughout Eastern Europe, including Poland and Georgia. We are now thinking about strengthening the research capacity of the Parliament of Georgia, and we seek international cooperation for this important objective, which is really one of the top priorities for the Georgian Parliament. I will be speaking today about regional security challenges facing Georgia and our region in general, and the role of NATO in strengthening our regional peace and security. I will also touch upon the role of the Parliament in strengthening Georgia's Euro-Atlantic bonds with the West. We live in probably the most complex security environment since the end of the Cold War, and the Euro-Atlantic community faces diverse and complicated challenges, which includes a growing risk of conventional war in Europe. Russia's revanchist foreign policy is the major challenge to the regional and the Euro-Atlantic security, we believe, and this policy is supported by a massive disinformation campaign, which is aimed at discrediting our common values. Furthermore, the so-called hybrid threats have blurred the distinction between the state and non-state actors. Hybrid tactics can just as effectively undermine national security as conventional weapons would have done. We have faced ramifications of both conventional and unconventional warfare used by Russia against Georgia ever since our independence. Most recently, we have witnessed increased use of so-called soft power by the Russian authorities and their proxies to persuade parts of Georgian population to divert from the Euro-Atlantic path. Fortunately, the government and population uniformly defied these attempts. According to the latest polls, Georgian population support to European and Euro-Atlantic integration remains unprecedentedly high. We have the different opinion polls conducted in Georgia, and the lowest figure is 72%. And I have to mention as well that in the recent parliamentary elections, more than 85% of the Georgian voters voted for those political parties which strongly support not only the European but also the NATO integration of our country. Even though Georgia is not in an active state of warfare with Russia, the daily aggression of a different nature continues and has never stopped. As you know, 20% of Georgia's territory remains occupied by the Russian Federation, having turned both occupied Abkhazia and Tkhinvali regions into Russian military bases, which is today's state. Moscow pursues intensive military build-up in the occupied territories. Russian armed forces have deployed massive amount of offensive weapons and conducted large-scale snap military exercises in both occupied regions in violation of the ceasefire agreement which was signed on the 12th of August in 2008. And displaying political intransigence, Russia also declines to reciprocate to Georgia's unilateral non-use of force pledge. And furthermore, Russia continues the process of creeping annexation through integration of both Abkhazia and Tkhinvali regions into Russia's political, military, economic, and social systems by signing and implementing the illegal so-called treaties with the occupied regimes. In pursuit of its policy of annexation, the occupation regime under Russian control conducted the so-called referendum in occupied Tkhinvali region, the so-called South Ossetia, on changing the name of the region. And the occupation regime has declared the intention to hold another referendum on integration of the region into the Russian Federation, paving the way to outright annexation. In similarity to the darkest days of the Cold War, the Georgian territory is being crisscrossed with barbed wire fences. Kidnappings and provocations along the occupation line is a usual occurrence. Discrimination and abuse of ethnic Georgian population by the occupation regimes is also an unfortunate norm. Instruction in the Georgian language has been banned everywhere in the Gali district of Abkhazia, leaving children not only without mother tongue education, which is a fundamental human right, but also without proper education at all, as teachers were not ready to switch from one language of instruction to another. And this situation is even more alarming, taking into account that the occupied territories are inaccessible for the international monitors. The European Monitoring Mission is the only international mission on the ground for observing the situation, but it's denied the access to the occupied territories. Therefore, the monitoring mission is not in the position to fully implement its mandate. Despite these provocative steps by Russia and the occupation regimes on the ground, Georgia steadily follows the policy of peaceful conflict resolution, relying exclusively on political and diplomatic means. We have made the unilateral pledge on non-use of force and pursue a pragmatic approach to Russia, which is aimed at the de-escalation of tensions. We continue constructive engagement within the Geneva international discussions, which is the only format between Georgia and Russia to negotiate with international mediation on outstanding security-related and humanitarian issues in the occupied regions. Georgia is doing its utmost to have result-oriented discussions within the Geneva format and to reach progress on non-use of force, creation of meaningful international security arrangements on the ground, and the return of IDPs and refugees. However, almost 9 years of consistent negotiations yielded very little constructive response from the Russian side. The Georgian government is committed to the policy of reconciliation of the population divided by the conflict and occupation lines through dialogue, confidence building, and people-to-people contacts. And we are determined to make the benefits of Georgia's European agenda available for our fellow citizens beyond the occupation lines in Abkhazia and in Tkhinvali region. The international society should not keep a blind eye on Russia's aggressive actions with regard to the occupied territory of Georgia and severe security and humanitarian situation on the ground that this policy entails. Firm stance of the international society is essential to send a clear message to Russia that this policy directed against sovereignty and territorial integrity of Georgia and redrawing the borders in Europe through invasion and occupation is not acceptable. Russia's military aggression against Georgia and Ukraine dramatically worsened the security situation in the Euro-Atlantic area. The occupation of Georgia's Abkhazia and Tkhinvali region in 2008 and illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014 have significantly increased security challenges and disrupted peace in the Black Sea region. Slowly, the new reality led the North Atlantic Alliance to once again refocus its capabilities on deterrence. At the same time, the ongoing conflict in Syria has resulted in tremendous humanitarian disaster and produced the waves of migration towards Europe. This is not good news for the spread of terrorism. ISIS and its associated terrorist groups not only pose grave danger to the vulnerable countries of the Middle East, but they have stricken us in the heart of Europe as well. The current security environment has once again demonstrated that no single state is immune to such diversity of threats. We should act on it together. The complexity of the challenges has demonstrated the need for unity, cohesion, and solidarity now more than ever. We believe that NATO is the best positioned platform to address these challenges. NATO and the European Union enlargement after the end of the Cold War made the dream of Europe whole, free, and at peace possible and foreseeable reality. These are the two major European and Euro-Atlantic institutions that have united the most of Europe within common security, political, and economic framework cemented by the shared values. First and foremost, this common value-based framework is why we pursue the policy of full-fledged integration into both NATO and the European Union. We see our path to NATO and the European Union as a way of natural homecoming to where Georgia belongs, that's the European civilization. Poland has successfully completed this difficult transition, and you are in the best position not only to understand our longing for the free Europe, but also you can and you do help us to progress on our path towards European and Euro-Atlantic integration. We are progressing on the path of NATO integration, especially in terms of practical cooperation. The Alliance has recognized that Georgia has all practical tools to prepare for the membership of the Alliance as decided by the allies at the Bucharest summit. We pursue the integration agenda through NATO-Georgia Commission, Annual National Program, and the NATO-Georgia Substantial Package. Georgia's relations with both NATO and the European Union represent a good example of how the aspirant country, despite all the challenges, can develop mutually beneficial cooperation and advance integration agenda with these institutions. Besides being a beneficiary of this support, Georgia is also a provider of security through wide involvement in the NATO and the European Union peacekeeping and crisis management missions. We continue to demonstrate our willingness and ability to contribute to the shared Euro-Atlantic security. Through our participation in NATO military missions, we have proved that Georgia stands ready to share the burden of collective security. Georgia's intensifying relations with NATO is a significant element of the broad regional developments that witness greater cooperation in the Black Sea area. The changed security environment has already generated NATO's responsive measures, which were announced at the Warsaw Summit. The Black Sea dimension of NATO's activity is gaining more and more momentum. Being an aspirant country and a reliable partner, Georgia supports NATO's efforts to strengthen the shared Euro-Atlantic security, including in the Black Sea region. We are ready to actively cooperate with the alliance in this regard. It's hard to overestimate the importance of the Black Sea region for the Euro-Atlantic security, as 3 of 6 littoral states now are the members of the alliance, and the region connects the rest of Europe to Asia and the greater Middle East. Peace and stability in the Black Sea region can generate numerous opportunities for successful cooperation. To state the obvious, the East-West energy corridor is one of such opportunities, as one of the most promising and effective routes for the long-term diversification of energy supply of Europe lies through this region. We strongly believe that the best way to secure the wider Black Sea region is to embrace regional countries, European and Euro-Atlantic aspiration, as it was the case previously with other countries of the Eastern Europe, first and foremost of all Poland. We have already seen that NATO enlargement has largely contributed to strengthening security in the Black Sea region. The successful development of the Black Sea states within NATO and the EU is a perfect example of the stabilizing effect of the European Union and NATO enlargements. Therefore, NATO should not stop at the water's edge, so to say. It's critical that NATO engage more with the regional non-member states in order to help them in strengthening their defensibility and resilience, as well as taking forward their aspirations. In a globalized era, it has become the conventional wisdom that not a single country or even a powerful military alliance can ensure its security exclusively on its own. I would like to reiterate the critical importance of continuation of NATO open door policy. The accession of Montenegro is a welcoming development in this regard. At the same time, it's crucial that NATO enlargement continues, including the other aspirant countries as well. In the current geopolitical environment, halting or even pausing the open door policy would lead to the emergence of zones of influence and dividing lines across the European continent. Toward the end of my talk, I must say that we see as the best means of reaching our European and Euro-Atlantic aspirations. Your support is crucial and is greatly appreciated by the Georgian people. But we understand that it's Georgia's reform agenda, our development and success that forms the most solid basis of our European future. Notwithstanding the very complex security environment, Georgia steadily continues its development. Our country has become a role model in the region in carrying out fundamental institutional reforms and democratic transformation. We launched a new wave of reforms, the main objective of which is to modernize the country and to put Georgia irreversibly on the path of freedom, democracy, prosperity. These values are a foundation of modern Georgian statehood, while European and Euro-Atlantic integration will provide the best guarantee that those values are protected and respected. The most recent major initiative directed toward greater democratization is the constitutional reform initiated by the Parliament. With constitutional changes, major flaws in Georgia's legal system will be eliminated, paving the way to a better system of checks and balances and to a European-type parliamentary republic. We believe that the Parliament should become the stronger voice in Georgian politics, preventing the danger of authoritarianism in the long-term perspective, averting the threat of political polarization and radicalization, helping to institutionalize party politics and enhancing political dialogue, strengthening the legislative oversight for better standards of government's integrity, independence of the courts, improved tax collection, more effective policing, and greater national security. Above all, the constitutional change will improve the legislative basis of human rights through enhancing entrepreneurial freedom, freedom of internet, citizens' rights for good governance, etc. Moreover, anticipating changes in electoral procedures further consolidate democratic standards through indirect presidential elections. Separation of powers becomes clearer and the gap between president's competences and legitimacy will be eliminated. Also, with the introduction of the exclusive proportional electoral system, dangers of authoritarianism and power usurpation will be fully eliminated. These changes will make Georgia's democratization process irreversible, but for achieving this, we will need even greater support from our strategic partners in the West. We firmly believe that embracing the European Euro-Atlantic aspirations of the regional countries will send a strong signal that re-emergence of the spheres of influence and attempts to limit the foreign policy choices of sovereign states are unacceptable in the 21st century. We understand that these are difficult times for the Euro-Atlantic community, but we strongly believe that the best way to effectively deal with the multitude of threats we face is to act together and help each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And